So every year, Father's Day is the same. You sleep till 8 a.m., you get a goofy card about golf or something, throw some burgers on the grill, and call it a day. But this year I had a different idea. What if instead of buying or planning the perfect Father's Day, I built the perfect Father's Day? 5 things every dad actually wants, 12 hours to make it happen. Here's the deal about perfect days. They never perfectly go according to the plan. Maybe that's what makes them perfect. All right. 6 a.m., family's still asleep. It's time to get going. This section of my lawn's been such an eyesore, but somewhere underneath all this chaos is supposed to be my sanctuary. You know what? This is for all those dads that go to a job they tolerate, home to a lawn that they say they're gonna fix every weekend. We're fixing it this time. So I've got 5,000 pounds of gravel, 1,000 pounds of sand, and a whole bunch of flagstones that for some reason are the heaviest things I've ever picked up in my life. Super heavy. A solo stove that promises a smokeless fire, and finally, some Tennessee whiskey to enjoy when it's all said and done, or whenever I give up, whichever one comes first. First rule of the day, start before anybody can stop you. So no turning back now. Phase 1, the perfect lawn. See these stripes? Those aren't just stripes. That's a statement to the world saying that I have my ish together. I don't have my shit together. But we're gonna fake it till we make it, right? Side note here too, at the end of this video, I got to sit down with the master distiller at Nelson's Green Brier. It was a super cool experience, Brandon. We got to talk about tons of stuff, particularly things about his dad and kind of like what makes him tick. So if you had to say, if your dad was a whiskey, what whiskey or bourbon or whatever do you think he'd be?
All right, so that's a really good question. My dad he's a classic, honestly, a true Kentuckian.
I thought it was really cool, so hang around for the end because it was a really fun, cool moment for me. Also, this is part of the video where most other lawn care channels or creators would start talking about the exact grass type and all the specifications around that. I don't really have time to worry about all that in my life right now. Now, what I do have is turf type tall fescue. I really recommend that if you live in the transitional zones or up north. Anything else besides turf type tall fescue for me is just a lot of work. But what I will tell you is about the tools that I'm using. This is a Milwaukee multi-tool, and I'm using the edger attachment because it's the absolute finesse tool. Even if you don't have a great looking lawn, this attachment, this edger attachment specifically, will really clean up your lawn. It'll give you a more professional, kind of crisper looking lawn, even if you've got a whole bunch of clover in there. Now that the grass is ready, it's time for the fun part. All right, now onto the fire pit. Step 1, remove all this grass. I built this fire pit from scratch, starting with a 50-foot diameter flagstone pad. First, I dug out the area about 6 inches deep. I just thought about this. I don't really know where to put all this grass after I dig it all up. Maybe just over there. And filled it with compacted crusher run gravel to create a solid level base. On top of that, I spread a thin layer of paver sand to help fine tune the level and make it easier to set the stones evenly. Then I laid the flagstones in a natural puzzle-like pattern, trimming some pieces with a hammer and chisel for a snug fit. Once everything was set, I swept polymeric sand into the gaps to lock it all in and misted it with water to activate the bonding agent. I finished it off with a few Adirondack chairs and some low voltage lighting to really set the mood. Now it's the perfect spot to relax with a bourbon and a cigar after a long day. We finally did it. One of these projects that I feel like I can hang my hat on for a while that should provide the memories that I'm expecting it to. Anyway, let's go show my wife. So I walked inside to my son doing this. And my wife's super stressed out, so the day kind of ended up blowing up on me for a little bit. You know what I just realized sitting out here? Most of us dads were just out here trying to build something, trying to matter to somebody. I know I joke around in my videos a lot and try to be silly and stuff, but I really feel like most men me included, are living this life of like, what does Thoreau say? Lives of quiet desperation. Kind of going through the motions at work, coming home to half-baked projects and messes in the backyard and kids that are growing up faster than we know what to do with. And we think if we could just build the perfect place, if we can just create the perfect situation, we'll be the perfect dad, or we'll matter. What if perfect isn't something that you build? You know what? Forget the list. Okay, so finally I get to enjoy this space. Jude went down, all is quiet, all is well, which feels kind of funny to say on Father's Day. Things are well when my son's down. Kind of feels sort of sad to me a little bit. Like, I built this space so that I could spend time with my son out here. Granted, he's 2, but still just had envisions of him sitting in that chair, just like us looking at the fire, even if he's just responding. And all I can do is wait till he goes, count down until he goes to bed, which is really sad for me. It's not how I want to be at all. But this stage of life, with another one on the way, I'm counting my blessings. Solo Stove actually sent me a solo stove to complete this backyard transformation area. Super smokeless fire pit. Nothing bonds a father and son like a whole bunch of smoke in your face, right? A solo stove works by using a double wall stainless steel design that creates an ultra efficient airflow. If you ever did this as a kid, it's like when you folded over a can. You remember doing that and poking holes, and it kind of works the same way if you want to make a smokeless fire. As you light the fire in that burn chamber, air gets pulled in through the bottom vent, heats up between the walls, and then gets pushed out through those top little holes, reigniting the smoke and creating what's called a secondary burn. That means much less smoke, more heat, and a cleaner, more efficient fire using just logs and sticks. Man, I'm really excited about this fire pit. It's going to get so much use throughout the years at my house. A lot of father and son memories. I know this video is kind of like a little bit Father's Day centric, but all of this kind of applies for any stage of life, really. I mean, like, I've always been a big day guy, like a Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday, Christmas Day, kind of like love holidays. But as I'm getting older, and like those days kind of lose their luster for me a little bit, truthfully. And what is really impactful is just like Tuesday and Wednesday. I remember talking to one of my best friends about, he's dating this girl, and I was thinking, like, they're kind of doing long distance, and I was just like, man, you really need to live in the same town, because you can doll yourself up for a weekend and look good and pretty and clean yourself up, but what do you guys do on Tuesday nights, when the excitement of the weekend isn't there? I want to kind of adopt that same thing with Father's Day and my son's birthday. Yeah, it's an important day to celebrate, but being a father is way more about Tuesday nights and Monday mornings, things like that, than just, let's think about how we're a dad today. All that to say is a thing that my dad instilled in me that I really appreciate is the pride in where he comes from, and pride in just his general, what he does in life. And I really appreciate that, and particularly pride in where he comes from. He's always talking about where he comes from and his ancestors and everything. So that's been instilled in me as well. Because of that, I am a huge Tennessee guy. So I got the opportunity to work with a couple of Tennessee local Nashville brands that I was really excited about. And honestly, I don't need to show any of this. I just thought these were really cool stories. Particularly, let's get started with the Nelson's Green Brier. There's a lot of debate around this, but this is probably the OG Tennessee whiskey of all time. So I've saved this bottle for today. Gonna share it with you guys. A big part of why I'm building this is because me and my buddies like to have a glass of bourbon around a fire and just sit, and sometimes you just stare in the fire, right? Today it's just me and you. Cheers to fatherhood and Tennessee. And there's a little story I want to share with you guys. If you hang on just a second, I'll play it right now, and then we'll jump back into this bourbon. All right, guys, so to tell us a little bit more about Nelson Green Brier, I've got Brandon here, the head master distiller.
Head distiller of Nelson's Green Brier and Copper and Kings.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get the world's greatest job at this?
So I actually started out as a plant guy. My mother, one of her favorite things to do before she went to work during the summer was to kick myself and my brother out in the yard and be like, you can't come back in until all the gardens are weeded and ready to go. So we kind of started out there. Then I got the opportunity to go to the University of Kentucky and get my horticulture degree. I was really just going to do plants and was headed out west to do greenhouse crops. But my senior year, I needed a horticulture-based business plan to write on. And my family's been in the wine business and the distilling business for generations. So my cousin had just moved back from Tennessee to Kentucky and started a viticulture and winemaking consulting firm. So I thought, man, I'll go out there for a week and hang out. We'll drink some beer and talk some shit, and then I'll be off on my way to California. And after about 3 days of sitting out in the vineyard, it was like, maybe I'm going to stick around for a little bit. So I fell in love with the grapevine, fell in love with a girl there in Kentucky, and then just booze was just in the blood. And kind of like it's a family thing, and like once you kind of get into it and see what it's about, it's really hard to do something else.
It's like you've almost watched some of my videos. One of my stories that I always tell is that growing up, my mom would literally, after breakfast in the morning on Saturday mornings, kick me and my brother out of the house and lock the door. And we weren't allowed back inside.
No, the hose
until
worked. Yeah.
Until if we had to pee or go to the bathroom, it was out in the woods.
Correct. It's very
Tell us
fun.
a little bit more about Nelson Green Brier.
Oh my goodness.
Besides having I will say, the world's prettiest bottle.
One of the best and one of the coolest American whiskey stories ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So basically, there was a German family that came over. You know, at that point in the mid 1850s, the American dream was in full force, and there wasn't a lot of stories out there saying anything else. So this German candle maker sold his company, packed his entire family up, put them on a ship, and sailed to the United States. They got about 2/3 of the way here and ran into some rough seas, and the ship actually ends up stalling, and I think they break the rudder. The ship is just incapacitated, and they sit out in the rough ocean for about 3 days, just bobbing along, waiting for another ship to come. Well, they finally have another ship that shows up. They start unloading all the passengers, and Mr. Nelson, being, you know, one of the adults there on the ship, waits till the very last boat to get off of, all right? And as he's getting on the boat, a huge wave hits and it capsizes their life raft. Now, back in that day, if you had any money and you were traveling overseas, what a lot of people would do is they would actually get suits custom made to put all their gold and jewelry in the suit so they wouldn't get robbed and all that good stuff. Well, as we all know, gold is heavy. So as soon as he flipped over, he immediately drowned. And then there sat his entire family on this other ship, watching their father, husband, and all of their fortune drop to the bottom of the Atlantic with nothing. So they ended up continuing the trip to the United States. Charles Nelson, who was 15 at the time, gets back into the candle making business, him and his brother, and they bebop around New York for a little bit, gather a little bit of money, and then eventually head to Cincinnati. At that point, he gets into the grocery business, and at that time in American history, the grocery stores were a place to get your whiskey as well. So it was kind of a one-stop shop.
You bring that back.
Yeah, I know, really do. So he kind of got introduced to distilling and all that aspect. He eventually takes his family and moves down to Nashville, Tennessee, starts a grocery store here, and then soon realizes that whiskey is where the heart is. So he starts a little spot here in downtown Nashville, buying barrels and stuff like that. Eventually gets the opportunity to go to Green Brier and actually build a distillery. He buys a patent from this brand new type of still, puts it into the distillery, and becomes one of the most modern distilleries in the country at the time. They actually blow up, start selling spirits all over the world, and he's actually one of the first producers to actually put their whiskey in a bottle.
So if you had to say, if your dad was a whiskey, what whiskey or bourbon or whatever do you think he'd be?
All right, so that's a really good question. My dad he's a classic, honestly, a true Kentuckian. Doesn't change very much, sticks to his guns, very black and white. Doesn't matter if you're on the black or white side, this is what it is. So I'm going to go with a classic bourbon. I'm going to say if my father was a whiskey or a bourbon, he's going to be a Wild Turkey 101.
Nice.
That's what he's going to be. You know exactly what you're getting in the bottle. Some days it works great, and then some days it should get you in trouble. But it is tried and true. That's probably what I'm going to say with the old man.
If you distill the memory down of your dad, what would it taste like?
So my father's a big outdoorsman, and so am I. Probably one of our best memories was he actually got drawn for a Kentucky elk tag a few years back. And we went to the mountains of eastern Kentucky and was very successful and harvested a huge, beautiful bull elk. And that was probably one of my favorite memories with him. So I would say What it's going to taste like and what it's going to smell like, it's going to taste like fall. It's going to taste like crisp leaves, changing in temperature, maybe just a little bit of fog in there.
I like that.
Yeah, and a pinch of chill, like in the morning, like when it's just now starting to get cold. That's kind of
best time of year,
yeah,
too.
best time of year, exactly.
That's my favorite time of year. I mean, how cool is that? Just an amazing story, an amazing guy. I really appreciate Brandon for hanging out and talking with me, and it's something that I want to instill a little bit more in my videos as well, is just the storytelling aspect of this. I am like a sucker for a good story. Particularly distilleries have a really cool history, the whole prohibition, that sort of thing. So those are stories that I want to incorporate a little bit more. Let me know in the comment section if you guys are interested in that. And if you're not, I don't care. I am. So no, that's not true. If you don't like that stuff, then, you know, maybe I'm not your guy. But those are really cool stories that I really appreciate. And I really appreciate what he had to say about his dad. How interesting it was that he could pinpoint, you know, a memory from his dad and the way that that memory tasted. Isn't that so cool? So anyway, cheers to that. If you're drinking at home. If you're not, I'll cheers for you. And to top it off, I'm pairing it with a Mil Diaz. What is that? 1,000 Days from Crowned Heads, another Nashville gem. This cigar is smooth, rich, and with just the right amount of spice. Kind of feels like the perfect conversation. Locally made, thoughtfully crafted, just like everything else about tonight.
And that's a wrap on the ultimate Father's Day. A little fire, a little bourbon, a little cigar, and a lot of chaos and just the right amount of dad jokes. Whether you're building a fire pit, firing up the grill, or just 5 minutes apiece, here's to the dads who show up, fix stuff, and somehow know where everything is in the garage somehow. My wife doesn't believe that, but I do know where everything is. Happy Father's Day. Now go light something on fire. Maybe have a little drink, but do it responsibly. See y'all again. Peace.